Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase and pricing questions. Today, we discuss a classic. This is one of those essential references from the modern era of Panerai. There have been a lot that have come and gone, forgettable pieces, season in, season out, and only a handful of brass tacks that every Panerai collector should own, and this is one of them. Launched in 2002 in 1,950 pieces, this is the Panerai Luminor Marina 1950, the PAM00127, a watch that was a landmark because it brought Panerai design back to where it started, very close to the original 1950s 6152 combat watch that had long served as the design basis for what's known as the Luminor model line on the civilian side. But whereas that Luminor of the 90s was designed by Alessandro Betterini, a Panerai employee, to be essentially a simple fabrication task, this was designed to look like the 1950s combat watch. So while we love the Betterini case and its tuna can-like profile, this, in terms of size and shape, is a lot more like what Italian Navy commandos used in the 50s and 60s. And it's big. 47 millimeters in diameter in stainless steel. The watch is 17.2 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 57.3 millimeters, and it has a 26 millimeter spacing between the lugs. We'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, and though this is a 47 millimeter watch, it's fine. The idea is that it's supposed to look too big. These things were often designed solely on the basis of legibility back during the Italian naval era of Panerai watches, and so being able to see it was a virtue. Too big was not a thing. Too small definitely was. So I'll move out and give you a better sense of scale, but I think I could wear this. At 16 centimeters circumference, you just have to be comfortable with the idea that big is the look. If you want it to look proportional, well, then probably 18 centimeters circumference wrist, and no, will not fit underneath the dress cuff. All right, the strap. The assolutamente, or very minimally tanned, traditional Panerai strap with a rustic sort of finish in medium brown, maybe a medium light brown. You can see there's a little bit of a color gradient even across the hide, but it's designed to look rough and ready and tactically inspired. There is some stuffing to give it volume, and surprisingly, it doesn't have a sheer cut side. It has a vertical folded side with a contrasting stitch designed to give a vintage look. On the bottom, you can see a brand new Panerai factory strap, no crimping, no gouging, with a more traditionally tanned black calfskin. And then we've got a Panerai trapezoidal pin buckle here, the oversized model so associated with the brand. And you can see it's fixed to the strap using screws and bars, and the strap is fixed to the case using screws and bars. So if you are a Paneristo, you probably already have the strap changing tools to start swapping away. There is no brand, including Rolex, for which more aftermarket strap designs are crafted custom and stock than Panerai. You can change your watch by changing your strap, and they encourage you to do so. And the reason I mentioned screws and bars is because later, as Panerai began cranking up production and cheapening the watches, they would start replacing this system, which costs a few cents extra, with a conventional spring bar. This is the thing you want. You want this, or you want their quick change system. The screws and bars, the most traditional and very secure. You can also see the case is more complex. Here we have some compound curves, some more involved faceting, more organic look overall. It's hard to say that military-inspired utensils and articles are more graceful than those made for civilians, but this is actually a lot more aesthetically appealing and sophisticated than the Betterini case of the 90s. Now, we do have a little bit of contrasting polish here. We've got the device protecting the crown, and I believe they started using this trademark engraving on this PAM00127 model back in 2002. You can see there's the device protecting the crown. It's a all-aspect crown guard that was created after the Rolex built Panerai era. So Rolex built all of the 3646 watches, the design that today we would call the Radiomir. And so those used Rolex cases and Rolex Oyster style screw down crowns. But because they were manual wind watches with short power reserves, they were constantly screwing the crown in and out, wearing down the stem tube assembly and the seals. So the Italian solution was this system where you have a lever and a cam which will lock the crown down and seal it. But all you're doing is compressing and decompressing the seal. You're not threading through it. So as soon as I unlock the crown, I can wind, I can set, I can do all sorts of things here. And then as soon as I lower the lever, it's locked again. 100-meter water resistance. This is an easier system to manipulate if your hands are wet, sweaty, or gloved than a tight screw-down crown. Also, it's easy to drown a watch with a screw-down crown by leaving it turned out a quarter turn, half a turn, one turn. This is hard to miss. Also, it gives you more protection. With a screw-down crown, if you hit the thing perpendicular, it can be damaged. Here, you've got all-aspect protection, and it's a design icon. You know what brand, and you know what model line. I don't think you can say that of anyone else's crown guard. Dial side, very simple. This is the 1950. We have rose gold hands, and then we have a sort of matte black base. We do have a dramatic bubble-like crystal. It is a sapphire. It's designed to look like a vintage plexi, but it is a sapphire. A sandwich dial, essentially a stencil with all of the indices and numerals over a solid disc of lume. Back in the combat and naval era of Panerai watches, it would have been a disc with radioactive luminescent base. Radiomir and Luminor, once upon a time, were radioactive paints. They were not models. Radiomir was based on radium. Luminor, I believe, was based on less stout stuff, not a gamma emitter, I think a beta emitter. I think Luminor was based on tritium or something kin to it with a shorter half-life and a less serious radioactive particle emission. But now, of course, it's super luminova, and the sandwich dial gives you this really cool three-dimensional lume effect. Note all three hands are lumed, so you can see that this Luminor Marina is working in the dark. The original 6152 would have been powered by pocket watch movements, most notably the Angelus SF240. What we have here is a Unitas architecture, now doing business as an ETA. ETA owns what was once Unitas. And so this is the 6497-2, which is like a 6498, but you have a seconds display over at 9 rather than 6. And the /2 means it's mechanically upgraded. Because this movement was designed in the 50s for desk clocks and pocket watches, like those old Angelus and Rolex Côte d'Ivoire movements, it's a big movement that fills this giant case. And you can see that it features a Panerai-specific finish and upgrades over a standard 6497. So finish-wise, Panerai uses mechanical finishing, but it makes it very attractive. You can see a handsome machine-applied but very neatly cut bezel, or bevel, I should say, and it does have a neat bezel, but this is a bevel. And then we have solarization on the ratchet wheel atop the barrel and the crown wheel. We have both blued and polished screws. We have a Panerai monogram across all the bridges. And then you can see that there's also a brushed solarization of the bridges. We have the addition of a polished steel swan's neck fine adjustment mechanism, Edicron for fine adjustment of timing and beat rate. So what makes this a 6497-2 instead of a 97 is that it features a longer power reserve at 56 hours and a higher beat rate at 3 Hz rather than 2.5. The 17-joule movement also features a COSC chronometer certification, so it is very accurate. And I will also mention just about the only modern refinement it doesn't have is hacking seconds. But it nicely fills the case back, and it does business here as Panerai caliber OP11. If you love this watch, it's a classic. Essential for any Panerai collection, you gotta have a 1950, and this is the 1950. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916 Company for purchase and pricing details.